this is Ree here. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate everyone. All praises to Kali Ma. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. It really helps me a lot. Don't forget to check out my website, paradoxastrology.com. I can help you with anything. And if you'd like more exclusive occult videos that I don't post on YouTube, consider subscribing to my Patreon. It also helps support this channel. Okay, let's get into this video. I just want to talk about how Saturn going direct will actually affect the US. I did touch on it briefly in my video about the US and what's happening with the US that I did recently, and I'll link that at the end as well if you want to watch that. But I have some new developments, some new things that I figured out that people will want to hear. So I wanted to elaborate a little bit more on this topic. Now, Saturn will turn direct on November 4th, and that will be in Dhanisha Nakshatra. Dhanisha is the wealthiest, the most beneficial. Its name translates into the most heard of or the most famous. So this is a lot to do with money. It has a lot to do with famous people. It's also known for marital problems as well. Rama is one of Vishnu's avatars who is regarded as good conduct and of righteousness and has faced a number of problems in marital life. He had to fight a war to rescue his wife, Siddha. And even after things returned to normal, he had to abandon her on some flimsy ground. That is in the story of Ramayana in the Vedic tradition. I just thought it was interesting to note as the war escalates in November. You can refer to my video of November predictions, that it just kind of coincides with that. A story of war and how the war is escalating. Also, I see the US possibly joining in on this. So Saturn will stay at 6 degrees all month, and then it will go to 7 degrees by November 2nd. And by January 11th, it will be at 4 degrees. Major events will happen between now and January 11th, definitely. Saturn is democracy. It's the labor class. It's unrest in the country, it's national calamities, it's famine, floods, earthquakes, hardship, scarcity, it's fatalities, it's arrest, imprisonment, and it's disease. It will be conjunct the moon in the US chart. The moon is the masses, the population, real estate, salesmen, water, health offices, nurses, domestic servants, hotels, motels, restaurants. So this is what's called Shawtee. It is usually a very difficult time in someone's life, a very challenging time. It could bring a lot of hardships. And this happens only once every 28 years. This is also going to be happening in Aquarius. Aquarius is electricity, airplanes, the people, humanity, revolutions, rebellion, socialism, radio, TV, science, alliances, friends, Israel, the House of Commons, Congress, societies, groups, organizations, automobile manufacturers, free will, legislation, public corporations, and parliament. So what does this mean for the US? I thought it was also interesting how Saturn being democracy and Aquarius being socialism, we've been seeing these two fighting amongst each other and one trying to overtake the other. We'll probably see more of that. This will be happening in the US's third house, which is travel, communications, transport, the news, journalism, neighboring countries, immigration, armed forces, written agreements, schools and trade within the country will be affected and weigh heavy on the public. Saturn is the lord of its second house of finance of the country, the financial condition of the country. It is also the economy that will take a hit as well. So a lot to do with communication, journalism, what's on TV, what's being broadcasted to us, and the economy. I looked back, when did this happen last time and what happened during this time? And that was in 1994. This is roughly 28 years, give or take. Remember, Saturn is stationing direct on it. It's not just conjunct. Now, when it conjuncts the moon, yes, big events occur all the time. But this is actually stationing direct on the moon for these several months. So this can be even a lot more major than we've seen in the past. So in 1994, on that date, February 3rd, when Saturn was 6 degrees, where it's at now, it reached 6 degrees on January 27th. So 6 days later, this is what happened. the Federal Reserve began tightening a program that saw interest rates rise by 3% over 12 months. The moon is the home as well, like we said. So the interest rates rose on homes. Then in 1994, we had the bond market crisis, also known as the Great Bond Massacre. It was a sudden drop in the bond market prices across the developed world. It began in Japan and the United States and spread throughout the rest of the world. After the recession of the early 1990s, historically low interest rates in many industrial nations preceded an unexpectedly volatile year for bond investors, including those that held mortgage debts. Over 1994, a rise in a sell-off of bonds and debt funds as yield rose beyond expectations. This was especially the case for instruments with comparatively large maturities attached. Some financial observers argued that the plummet in bond prices was triggered by the Federal Reserve's decision to raise rates by 25 base points in February in a move to counter inflation. About 1.5 trillion is lost in market value across the globe. The crash has been described as the worst financial event for bond investors since 1927. The immediate trigger of the crash in the US occurred at the Federal Open Market Committee on February 3rd and 4th in 94, although bond prices in Japan had started plummeting just a month earlier. So this could definitely happen again with this placement. And we also have to be careful, like I've been saying, that Rahu is at this Gandanta point. I use the true node, by the way, not the mean node. The mean node is already in Pisces, but the true node, which creates a lot of events when it's stationed, and it's stationed right now, and that's why I use that node. It will be stationed there until November 28th. So this will definitely occur in November. Rahu is at that Gandanta point. When Jupiter was at that Gandanta point, it caused a major financial crash. I've been saying that we should look out for this again. Although it's not Jupiter, Rahu is a lot worse than Jupiter. And so those are two things that could potentially create a crash for the US and possibly the world. Now, the moon is the lord of the 8th house, which is the demise of national rulers, state funerals, the cabinet of the president, advisor to the president, the state treasury, public debt, foreign debt, trading, stocks, business related to insurance, pensioners, social security, the risk of war and national disasters. The moon will be in the 8th house on that day, conjunct Rahu. The US is in Rahu Dasha right now. This means that something could possibly happen on that exact day, just like it happened on the exact day in 1994. Or it could happen within that 6-day mark, something around there. Because it's showing that on that day, the moon and Pusha in the 8th house in the US chart could bring out extreme emotions from the public and irrational thinking. Pusha is all about the home, the mother, where we lay our head to rest, where we feel safe and secure. That's why it has a lot to do with homes. It also shows that victimization can happen in this pada. Mercury is also in the 8th house with Rahu in the US chart. Mercury is in Purnavasu, which means wealthy again, and the energy and resources that one has at its command. It's in that sign. So it also can affect its reputation as a country and the president, because this is the lord of its 10th house. Biden's chart doesn't look good for health. Not at all. Something is definitely affecting him. And wars and open warfare, public enemies, international affairs, international disputes, and foreign trade will also be affected. So either his health declines and this could be the demise of him, or he's severely mentally disturbed by what's going on and has to make some very harsh decisions. This moon will also affect the entertainment industry, sports, gambling, the court system. It will create losses and fatalities in the country because of its aspects. Now, when I was talking about the 3rd house and what will be happening in these themes, because remember, Saturn is conjunct the moon in the 3rd house, but it's the 2nd house lord. So that's why all of these things will happen to do with finance. And then the moon is in the 8th house, which is another finance house. So that's why we're seeing all of these things that will occur with finance. But what is going to happen when it comes to the 3rd house matters, communication, the journalism, the news. Well, in 1994, we had the death of Richard Nixon. So that goes along with the reputation of the country and having a death that is well known. So that will definitely happen. We're already seeing that with the death of Matthew Perry, because the 10th house with activation of the 8th house, it shows us that major celebrities can pass away as well. So Richard Nixon wasn't the president at the time, but being a past presidential figure and a celebrity, that was a major thing that occurred. So we will see that again. Also, a lot of fake news stories. Okay, so O.J. Simpson was arrested in 1994 on June 18th for the killing of his wife. This is another fake story that was created by the media. Also, Olympic figure skater Nancy Kerrigan was attacked and 3 were arrested. That's another very questionable story. 4 were convicted in the World Trade Center bombing. Yes, the bombing occurred, but we don't really know. A lot of these things are created, we'll say. We'll just stop there so my channel doesn't get deleted. Also, Bill Clinton was accused of sexual harassment while governor of Arkansas. And that was probably true. That was probably true. I didn't know that he got away with so much sexual harassment and just became president after that. Not surprising. So there will be a lot of manufactured events to affect the public perception. Remember with the OJ trial, they said there was something like 90 million people were watching. So remember that these news stories are made so that you glue to the TV, and it affects the perception, it affects the psyche of the people. So it doesn't matter. You don't need to follow what a celebrity did. It doesn't matter what they did. It's irrelevant to your life, and you should stick to what is directly affecting you and stick to your family and your friends. It's a little bit of what I see, the themes around it, what may happen, a little bit of caution. This is not financial advice. This is just what I see in astrology, and to keep an eye out on that as well. The last time when it was at the Gandanta point, when we had Jupiter at the Gandanta point, that was called Black Monday, and that was due to data being overly inflated. And I just caution people, because crypto, it seems to be going up a lot, that it could affect crypto, but I'm not sure. It could just be the bonds, but it seems overinflated. And that's what happened last time. It was very overinflated and then it just crashed. So just a caution to people. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you, and I'll see you in the next one.